What's up, guys? Welcome to season 2, episode 2 of the NiNe podcast. Still going through the OP parts, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about intuition. And intuition is a pretty interesting one because it's both our top functions. I have I'm an INFJ, and Jono has he is an ENFP. So we're going to look at both sides of intuition and just explore it, take a look and see what's underneath it. From a saviour intuitive perspective, and yeah, so
episode two.
Yeah, and it's a quite an interesting flip because last episode we spoke about sensing. That's our demon. So yeah,
can I just say,
this is gonna be.
I'm already gonna go off topic here, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
But I just need to say, and this is a bit of a peacock, that so Otim and I, when we do these Zooms, so what we're using Zoom, right, to record this audio. And what we do is we both start the meeting, and the moment that Otim joins, I hit the record button, and that just kicks us straight into blast mode. There's no messing around. There's no perfecting things. Because that's what happened last season. Last season, we'd just get in the room, we'd talk about it, we'd consume, we'd try to over perfect it before we blast. And now it's join the Zoom, hit record straight away, and bang.
Yeah.
Great intro.
Yeah. And with that being said, let's talk about what is intuition. What is it? And I think we can even use that as an example. So, I think you can go first. Okay.
So intuition it's a hard thing to describe because it's trying to describe something you can't see, right? You're trying to explain something you can't see.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy thing to describe, but it's basically, it's just pattern analysis. Recognition of patterns. And I don't mean just art or looking at a book and looking at colors and stuff like that. I mean recurring things that happen in life. Yeah. And just being very in tune to their existence, basically. Yeah. So let me give you an example. You may notice that, in high school, you have a school teacher, and you may notice that, for some reason, whenever they walk through the door, the first thing they do is they pull out a pen from their top pocket and place it on the desk in a very specific way, right? They do that every time. And it's you've noticed that, that you've noticed a pattern. And to people who have intuition, they may notice it straight away, or even the first time it happens, they'll be just that's weird. Yeah. But that's kind of an example from my perspective. Otim.
And that, just to jump off that example, what especially a saviour intuitive will do, so it's if the teacher does it once or twice, we'll be oh, that's a pattern, that's gonna happen. You just assume that, okay, they're just gonna do that.
You also assume sensing patterns. Yes.
Yeah, and sensing would would obviously pick it up, but they will wait to see it a lot of times before it's they assume.
Yes.
Oh,
let's get it documented. What time does it happen?
Yeah.
When does it happen? What's the weather like?
Yeah.
Documented.
And that's the thing. Assuming pattern. It's this is overactive intuition. I was telling my friends this. I don't believe in bad luck. Some people are oh, something bad happened to me. So they say, oh, I have bad luck. So they assume there's this negative force that will continue negative things. So I don't believe in bad luck, but I do believe in good luck. And it's irrational. But if something good happens to me and it's coincidental, I'll just be oh, there's an outside force. I'll just I just assume there's a connection. This didn't happen without a reason. There's a connection.
Is it related to the law of attraction?
For me, it's different because I don't relate it to my thoughts or anything I do. Because law of attraction is kind of you attract it. When something happens to me, I just assume there's just some good energy.
And by the way, that was an example of any, I just tried to relate his concept to another concept.
That's a connection, exactly. I think,
right?
Yeah.
It may not fit, it may not be correct, but from my understanding, they seem like they're the same.
And that's another thing about intuition. It's open to risk.
Yes, we love risk. We don't care if we're wrong.
Yeah.
We can make assumptions all day. We'll guess we'll guess until the cows come home.
Yeah. And we'll act on those guesses. Yeah. It's a risk. Yeah.
That's one thing that really, really shocked me about like NOPs, like just learning that saviour intuitives are guessing all day long and saviour sensories are actually anecdotally protective and afraid of guessing, because what if they're wrong? What if the information is correct? So that's a very interesting nugget right there.
Yeah, it's
anything else on what is intuition?
For me as well, I think intuition is basically heuristics. So heuristics, it's this idea maybe in other fields, but in behavioral economics, heuristics it's basically a way of making decisions. So you use a rule of thumb to make a decision, and the point of doing that is it saves time and energy, and you're not going to be 100% correct every time you make a decision based on that rule, but you get good enough results. It's like you're using an assumption. Right. I can't even think of a good example. It's like it's really hard to, I don't know. It's hard to, I can't think of an example, but it's essentially a way of quickly making a good enough decision about something. It's like there is risk of being wrong, but you save, it's like a shortcut. And it's a mental shortcut. It's like a concept. It sounds
a bit like a machine learning algorithm called GPT-3. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Oh, I have heard of it, but I can't remember the details.
Me neither. But no, I'm joking. I mean, I remember some of the details, but it kind of is. So machine learning, it's looking at data. There's two types. There's the GPT one, which is a lot quicker, but it's making more assumptions. And there's the other version, which I can't remember, which is much more accurate, but it takes a lot longer. What you're explaining sounds to me like GPT-3 relative.
That's
machine learning, I think it's called. I don't know.
That's really cool.
I'm just guessing here.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know that, but that's actually a really perfect example of that. Yeah, go ahead. And also it might be worth saying or talking about intuition. It's something that everyone uses. I think every time you're looking at a detail, you're also aware of the connection. So like even language, the fact that people can speak, you're constantly connecting things. Like if I look at this cup, my brain knows it's a cup. That's like a connection, right?
Right. Okay.
So there's like the underlying intuition, but then I think where it gets different for like saviors and demon intuitives, it's like the risk you're gonna take with your guess. There's like the safe guesses where it's like I have a lot of details and data to support this. Yeah. But then where it gets like more risky and you're doing guesses with less information, that's like more of you're more comfortable with intuition. And
that makes sense.
So it's So just wanted to preface that.
So why as humans do we have intuition? Like, I guess what we'd have to try to figure out is like, what would we look like without it?
Honestly, I think intuition is like, if let's say there's like 10 coins on the table, intuition will let's say there's like 47 coins on the table. Intuition will look at the table and in 5 seconds be like, oh, there's between 30 and 50 coins. But whereas and that's like raw intuition. You're not even counting any of the coins, you're just guessing. It looks about 30, 50. And then if you didn't have intuition, you would have to count every coin to check. So it saves energy because you're using like a shortcut approach to like dealing with things. You're using patterns. You don't have to go through every line to make a decision. You can, and you'd be screwed without it, because in life, most situations, you don't have enough information. So you'd be stuck. You'd feel like, oh, I can't make a decision.
That's true.
So we need it to move through reality, because we just generally don't have all the information.
Everyone has this. Everyone does it. Whether you're sensory, whether you're saviour intuition, And actually, I just want to go back on the what is intuition part. I want to say what isn't intuition, and there is a perception, and it's mainly stemmed from the MBTI community, that being intuitive is you're a magical warrior, you're a unique person that can just imagine things and guess things and just know what's right all the time.
Everything, yeah.
That is so bullshit. We are like 80% wrong.
Percent wrong. Yeah, wrong. Honestly. Yeah, 100%.
This is just, for the savior sensories out there, or the people that think, they want to be intuitive, like, please don't wish this upon yourself.
Yeah. And my experience of like being wrong, it's not like I make a guess and I'm like, oh, I could be wrong, but I'm not aware of the risk until afterwards. I'm like, oh, that was wrong. I'm like, oh shit, okay, that was wrong. So it's like, it's instinctive. I just have to guess. It's only after the fact that I'm like, that was a risky guess. Yeah, that was shit. I'm not like super aware of it. So it feels like I just, that's the way my mind works. Yeah. Okay. And another reason why we have it is because Dave talks about T is like you're smart, then he says like intuition is more about cleverness, and I think we have it to get around problems that aren't obvious. So it's like if there's an obstacle, intuition, and it's a difficult obstacle, intuition can sometimes give you a different way which you wouldn't see at face value. So sometimes it helps you get out of sticky situations.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
And I guess like when people, you hear it all the time, people always say, when they've had a difficult situation, sometimes people respond with like, I just had a gut feeling. I just felt that this was the right decision, or I just like had this instinct. That's like partly intuition. You can't fully understand.
You can't.
Your subconscious
showing you things.
Has the information, but it's only showing you glimpses.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's and that's a good, and that's and the interesting thing is because I have thinking as well, I don't tend to have like, oh, I don't tend to explain things like, oh, I did this from my gut instinct. Because usually the way my mind works with the N and the T is I'll do a lot of thinking to build my reasons, but it was based on a gut instinct. But the final decision is based on lots of reasoning. But so it's like, to me, I think I've thought it through. So I'm like, oh, that wasn't a gut instinct. But what I've recognized about myself is the underlying basis of it came from a gut instinct. Okay. So it's like I'm blocking the gut instinct with lots of thinking. So I think sometimes the NTs can seem as if they can talk in a way as if they're not doing that, but it is like underneath you are kind of basing things on like these interpretations or assumptions.
Yeah, and like with the TI,
you just run with it.
TI, you're stacking this logic, you're building your reasons.
Yeah.
But a lot of the logic is based on some assumption as well, right?
Assumption, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Then like underneath it, it's fart gas. Unless you
Fart
so
gas.
It's like I've noticed with myself, I have to be careful because of that. Because I know I can mental gymnastics is very easy for me. Like I can just make something seem so logically sound, but like underneath it, it's just not a good basis. So I have to check my shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're a great bullshitter.
Yeah. I mean, in my head, I think I'm not bullshitting, but it is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've kind of covered how it works a little bit already, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Should we discuss NE and NI?
Yeah,
extroverted intuition and introverted intuition.
Yeah, that's perfect. You go ahead.
So I'm NE at the top, double activated.
Yeah.
my mind is constantly just jumping to things that to most people seems completely random, but to me it makes total sense. Okay, so this happens to me a lot, and it's quite embarrassing. But I can't think of a specific example, but I'm going to try to explain the concept as much as possible. So, okay, let's just use your imagination, people. I'm at work with colleagues.
Also,
right?
Do you know why I'm laughing? I think I know what you're going to say. Like my intuition is assuming what you're going to say, so I'm just laughing about it.
All right, let's see if it's correct.
Yeah.
I'll have a conversation with someone, right? And they will just say one word, and they're meaning something very specific. But for my brain, I've taken that word and just gone somewhere completely, maybe to a conversation I was having earlier with someone else. And now I'm assuming that this person I'm talking to was talking about the same thing I was just talking to about someone else with. So then I'll just go down this, agree with them and like keep going. The conversation keeps elaborating. And then I'll have like my response, and they're just like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm like, don't you mean like this? And they're like, no, like I mean this. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. That's because you told me about that before, and you said it to me just when it happened. You were like, this is what just happened, and you were like, oh, this happens to me a lot. It was that's hilarious.
That's one example.
Yeah. And I think that's also, it makes sense that it's any, because of that. There's you're seeing multiple interpretations, and you're just like,
it could mean many things,
Yeah.
And often when like people are trying to like describe something to me, like I often get stuck on certain words they use, because I'm like, okay, first we need to define this. Like, what do you mean by that word? Yeah. And I wish I could have some examples, but how is it with NI? Like
with NI
at the top. Give me some NI examples.
Yeah. So I'm trying to compare to your example. I think this is the difference between NI and NE. I think I do a similar thing in conversation that you do, where I'm like the assumption, I'm like guessing what they mean based on like the information in my head, but I'm running with it. But I think NI is a bit protective with bringing out the guess. So it's like I'm a bit more cautious. Okay. So I'll notice I'm off before I say something. Because I'm just more cautious, like, because I think it's more protected. Yeah. And I think NE is more open. Like NE is like intuition on top of intuition, because it's also extroverted, so it's open to chaos. It's even more open to being wrong. Like it has to come out. Like if you see a pattern, you have to tell the person like, oh, look at this pattern, right? So that's why it's like risk on top of risk. So I think NI is a bit of a contradiction, because it's risk, but it's also cautious. So like, I'm like, how can I make the right guess? So I'm like, oh, let me see if this pattern comes out the way I think it is. And I'm like, oh shit, I was wrong. So then, but I haven't said anything yet, because I'm more cautious about it. But it's the same. I think it's the same thing. That's
so it's so interesting, and it actually like brings a good discussion point in that, like, maybe you should ask or answer, like, what do you see from an NI perspective? Like, what are NEs doing? Like, if you were to just categorize all of the NE leads or any NE saviors, what are they doing?
What are they doing?
What are we doing? What's the one thing we're doing?
So, it's really interesting, because I realized this a few weeks ago. It just hit me. So I used to feel not like triggered by NE, but like a little bit offended by it, but not like in an overt way. But I just felt like, so let's say I join like a chat with like loads of NEs. It feels like NEs quite brash. Like you guys will just like talk in a very brash way, and I can't explain it. But for some reason, it would hit me in an offensive way. Like, why are they so confident? Why are they just talking like so confidently? And I never realized until a few weeks ago that, oh, it's because NI is because it's introverted. It's like imagine FI, when people are just it's like everyone should like keep their shit. You know what I mean? Don't like
exactly.
It's in a weird way, like airing your shit out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was trying to get to like the difference between the introverted and the extroverted. It's like the introverted is like, it's personal. Patterns are personal. The intuitions are personal. The NEs, it's like, no, this is like for everyone. Like,
we're all sharing. Yeah, exactly. And it makes like, and of course, like, so on some level, it's good to connect with intuition. Like I do it too, but then it'll feel like the NEs they just keep doing it. And then like, yeah, it's so interesting. It makes no sense why I feel that way, but yeah, that's interesting. And like, I mean, and from the NE perspective, like I think what I see with NIs is like every NI person is going through life but they are building their own path, right? I see.
Like
okay.
they're building their future path, right? So, and I see this a lot with NIs. It's like they're always
go ahead. I thought you were gonna say all NIs, they're just stuck in their head.
Well, a little bit.
Yeah.
But like no. So I guess their focus and their goals and their way of life is very specific. Like they're trying to build a narrow path for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Narrow is not necessarily a negative term. Yeah. It's just like, this is the way of life that I want to choose. I want to follow this pathway.
Yeah.
And, you see this in religion. You see this in certain ideals, like, vegans and, a lot of the extremes, right? Like a lot of extremist vegans that I know, like they're all NI, say this. And they're all like, no, this is the only way. They're basically preaching at you. You look at like a lot of religion as well. Certain Christians who are NI.
Not gonna name any names.
This is the only way, and it's like, okay, I get it, but like, it's not actually. There's many more. There's so many more. And I'm just looking at like, I feel like I'm just watching all these people just like going in like straight lines. It's like, well, guys, like, there's 100 of other lives you can. Yeah. And some of these are actually exactly the same, but you guys are arguing over just like sensory differences, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. It's and I think we can also touch upon this on the feeling podcast episode. I think that the way intuition and I works in that way, I think FI also does a similar thing. And I think when both are together, it is like, this is the way, and like both, this is the way, like the important way, and this is the way like for life,
right?
Because I think sensing just wants proof. It's not like this is the way, because it's like science is like, this is the way until we get more evidence. It's like evidence will always change it because it's sensing. And with thinking as well, this is the way until you prove me wrong. And it's like, if you argue and then you're wrong, you have to change your way. But intuition, you can't prove that shit wrong. It doesn't, if it wants to be, it'll be. And same with feeling, you can't. So it's like those two, when they're both introverted, I think can make, have that kind of flavor.
Wow, that's very interesting.
I think that's what I've seen. And the thing is with NI as well, I think what you mentioned about the path, I feel like that's the best, like obviously because I'm NI, I'm like, oh, that's the best way to. So in my head, it's like, I think the benefit with me is because my NI is feminine and single activated, I can appreciate NE, like I can actually appreciate it. So for me, it's like a priority order. I should use my intuition first for my path, and then second for like exploring the outside world, connecting with people. But first, so it's like a priority order for me. But I notice with the NEs, I don't see, it feels like almost the wrong priority. I'm like, how do you guys manage? Like, but that's the thing, it's just an external perspective though. So I have no idea what the internal process is. Like, how do you use NE to like, because it happens, but I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it's like we're doing it backwards. So this a good example is, and this is an example that Floris Rodemont gave me.
Yeah,
is that he sees like people on the NISE points, introverted intuition, extroverted sensing, are kind of like in a car driving, and they're just looking at the world, and the data's coming in, right? Sensory information is getting consumed, right?
Yeah.
And as that data is getting consumed, they're kind of like with the wheel of the car, kind of then navigating the pathway.
Yeah.
So like, okay, the sensor is coming in, and now I know which direction I'm going, right?
100%. That's it. But I agree with
people, NESI, they're doing it. They're driving backwards. So they're looking, they're driving, but they're looking in the rearview mirror, right?
Oh my god!
And the sensory that's already happened.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Intuition is like, oh, okay, based on what's already happened, then I guess I should go this way, type thing.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Like I'm looking at the past information and looking like, okay, look at the patterns within that, and looking at, okay, what works, what's the valuable information here, and then just build. And honestly, I think everyone with SI, like the only way they're going to get through life is if they have some kind of documented routine. Like a specific routine. Like if you don't have a specific wake up time, and do this at this time and do that at this time, and real specific, like if you don't have that as an NESI, I think you could be quite lost.
You're gonna be screwed. Right. That's interesting. And the backwards driving analogy is good, because you guys manage to do it, but I don't know how you do it. But at the same time, I don't see a problem with it. It's still the same outcome. And
it is.
I just have
it's a reverse process.
The main benefit for your way of doing it as well is you guys are more adaptable. That's the main benefit, because because sometimes I'm like, oh, what's the point of going into this tangent? It doesn't help me move forward. So I'm just gonna ignore it. But let's say an NE is willing to entertain stuff that doesn't benefit them in an obvious way. They may be in a situation where they can just pull that out of the bag, like, oh, it's a good thing I randomly did this, because now this pattern is useful. So they have patterns that they've explored that may not be immediately useful, but it could be. So it's like getting possibilities, because it might possibly be good. It's like possible on top of possible. For me, it's like I will follow patterns that I feel will certainly be useful. It's like I need certainty with my patterns. So it's like, okay, this directly will impact my life. Whereas you're just, like I'll explore this. It could be a good pattern, could not be. I'll just explore it just in case, and then you just have more in your bag. It makes you more adaptable.
You're looking for useful concepts, useful patterns, useful.
100%, yeah. And that's where the SE comes in, because it has to be like applicable.
Yeah.
In an obvious way.
Okay.
But it's not. But it that works on the assumption, and that works on the assumption that I know what's useful when I don't. That's what makes any more adaptable, because they're just open. You're not working on the assumption that you know exactly what pattern is the right pattern. You're just exploring different patterns, and then you have more available to you. So that's like the crutch of NI.
Okay.
That assumption. Yeah.
So, do animals have intuition?
Do animals have intuition? That's a good question. I think so. We learned about, because I did, so for everyone, I did a psychology master's at uni, and one of our modules we did look at animals and animal intelligence, and there's a little bit, we don't really know how intelligent animals are. We have estimations. We try to figure out, oh, this animal, like a horse, there was a horse that could count numbers. So we were like, oh, can animals count? But it turns out it wasn't counting. It was just learning
Memorizing.
cues,
Okay.
yeah, like movement. It wasn't actually like counting numbers. So do animals have intuition? I think based on, someone might prove me wrong and be like, oh, actually this specific animal, there's a study that has explored it and we found it. So probably someone might be able to argue with me, but I think based on my general understanding, no.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's the thing that like is supposed to set us apart from other animals, is that we have imagination. Like that's what we assume is what makes us so much more different, because we have that prefrontal cortex.
So would you also say that dreaming is a form of intuition? Does that have to do 100%. With intuition, or is it
100%? I think so, 100%.
Because I do know that dogs dream. Like it's been.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I don't know if it's true, but I saw a video. I've seen multiple videos of like dogs fast asleep, and they're just like.
And it's like moving. It's like
they just start running and like
moving. Yeah. The reason why I said dreams are intuition is because of. So it depends. So some people have dreams where they repeat something from their normal lives, like they just go through their normal normal day.
It's just
it's like
repetition of a routine. Yeah.
Data.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So that's more of like.
And that's part of the brain, whatever it's called.
Yeah, and in my head I'm like, that's more memory. My dreams are fucking wild. Like I'll have like some crazy storyline where like we're exploring. Like I had a dream 2 days ago where there was a lot of chunks into the dream, so it was quite chaotic. But I remember it was like we had to go on this space mission, but the planet I went to was also, it went back the time. It was like prehistoric or whatever. So there's like time travel and space travel at the same time. And then it morphed into something else and this and that. So that's what makes me think dreams are intuitive, because
that's pure imagination right there. Like
So I don't know what dog dreams are like.
They're probably not like dreaming about going to space and like fighting like killer robot dogs or something.
Yeah.
They're probably just dreaming of running down a hill.
Literally, it could even just be remembering exactly what it did during the day or something. Like nothing new, just like going over.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually.
So I don't know. So that's the thing. But it could have intuition. Maybe I'm wrong. Just
could
a
be.
guess.
Could be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the last question and the last point here is, why does intuition have the highest SF value?
Why does it have the highest?
Why does everyone want to be intuitive?
I
think I touched on it earlier, but
yeah, you can go first.
More of just intuitives are painted as people that are magic, that have superpowers, that can, that their gut feeling is everything and they see the future. I mean, look, I'm sure like some intuitives in leads can predict the future based on a lot of current or past data. They can see, okay, this has happened in the past, these are the patterns, now let's just project this into the future, and what will it look like? Well, it could look like this, sure. This is why so many movies that are made like 20-30 years ago are almost predictive of things that are happening today. It's because
someone was using accurate intuition there. The other reason on top of that, why does it have the SF value? Honestly, intuitives, we know we suck. We're not putting value on it, but I think if someone is a sensor, and let's say before they get timed as well, especially if it's someone's demon, they may put it on a pedestal. So it may be like, it's like intuition is being appreciated from more of a, okay, let's say we struggle with this, and then, okay, so this must be a good function. Whereas in reality, it's like, it's only good if you're double observing.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. That's the best point there. You talk to any decider about, you know, things, I don't know, they just have a better perspective on the observers. Like, you know, my girlfriend, she's SE, she's TESE. And so she's got SENI in the middle, and every time we're watching detective shows or a movie, she's like right on the money. She's predicting it straight away. She's like, oh yeah, this is because of that and that and that. I'm like, wow. Whereas my brain went something completely different. I'm like, I thought this was going to happen, which was completely random.
Nimi, my girlfriend is lead SE. She will watch stuff and she will guess better than me, and she'll guess better than me. She's lead SE. That's like the irony. Like, it doesn't mean our guesses are good. We're just willing to do it all the time.
Yeah,
exactly. But
yeah,
so that's the and it goes to like, it's the whole idea that intuition, because you don't see it. Because I think sensing is more like everyone has to do it. Everyone has to go through the world and experience the world.
Yeah.
So I think because intuition, it's not obvious, it makes it easy for people to assume this is like a special thing, but it's not. That's
exactly.
It's really.
And what I find funny though is that like not many people that come out actually as intuitives, they never think themselves, well, not never, but they don't normally think themselves as sensory saviors.
Yeah.
Like it's more in the sensory saviors that think they're intuitive than the intuitives think they're sensory.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, that's just my observations and my pattern analysis. I don't know if that's actually true, but that's what I've observed.
I think intuitives, we experience the sensing in our face because you can't ignore it. Yeah. So we have so much frustration with the world and the sensing that we can't mistake ourselves for savior sensors. Like we fall flat on our face unavoidably because you can avoid guessing. That's the thing. You can avoid guessing, and then you just guess when you have all the facts and you're like, okay, I'm intuitive. But with sense, we can't avoid sensing. We keep failing.
Exactly.
So then we know, like,
we're the nerds. We're the ones that stand on the side while the sports game is happening. We're the ones that don't participate in all the active shit, in your face sensory stuff. Yeah. So it's obvious, right? It's
obvious.
You can see it. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Any last thoughts before we wrap up this episode?
Any last thoughts? Well,
last
thoughts. But yeah, that was really good, man. We should just end it on that connection there.
Thanks, guys.
Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Feel free to let us know if you disagree with anything. And I hope you guys took a lot of value from this.
Yes. So, please prove us wrong. Please keep telling us we're great or tell us that we're shit, whichever one is correct for you. And enjoy. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Bye.